Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. You're very welcome to our review show, and we're looking back at a good weekend for Armagh footballers and hurlers. Before we get into it, I just want to thank McKeever's Teamwear. They're the proud suppliers of all Armagh GA merchandise and, of course, our sponsor for the podcast. And I want to thank them for giving us 3 black jerseys for our competition, and we'll announce the winners of our competition later on in the show. So, Aaron, thanks very much for coming on once again. Aaron Kiernan's joining me to look back at the weekend. And we're also going to talk to Dean Gaffney, from the Armagh Hurlers. He's going to talk us through all the talking points from Armagh's win over Louth on Saturday. Aaron, big occasion on Sunday, big crowd, big atmosphere, a championship-like atmosphere. It was a great day for Armagh, of course, getting the win as well in front of that big crowd. Against the All-Ireland champions. It just made it all that sweeter, I suppose, getting the 2 points.
It was crazy, yeah. Great to see it. Absolutely brilliant to see it. Brendan Devaney from Donegal was working for RT Radio, and he texted me. He was obviously down early, and he texted me and he says, "You must hurry up and get here. This is a championship game, not a league game." So, from early on, there was a good atmosphere building in it, and even Jesus getting parked. It was halfway to Ballymacnab. We had a walk in, but it was terrific to get in and see the place absolutely packed out. Like I have to say, it's probably the biggest crowd I've ever seen in the athletic grounds. I know it was 14,500 was official, but I'm sure there was plenty of kids and teenagers that maybe weren't accounted for in that. So just in that regard, as supporters, it was brilliant to see everything getting out there. But from a player's perspective, that's what you play county football for. That's what you put in all the time and effort for, is to get the opportunity.
And that big crowd, on, we were trying to think of it at the game on Sunday. I don't think I've ever seen as big a crowd there. The only one we could sort of relate it to was maybe Donegal 2015. Geezer's first year in charge, that was maybe the only time.
Yeah, that was the only one that it would have been comparable. But I honestly think yesterday there was even more there. The lower terrace, it wasn't completely packed that day for that Donegal game. And if you remember, that was first round of the championship. We'd ran them close in the quarterfinal the year before. Beautiful weather. But yesterday, it's the first week in February. But it just goes to show you, number one, I suppose the enthusiasm and the excitement from the win against Dublin the week before, and then obviously the fact that it was Tyrone coming to town. They're all Ireland champions, and I think we smelt an opportunity, smelt a wee bit of blood. So yeah, it was. And to be fair to the athletic grounds, like even if you have maybe 5,000-6,000, it lends itself to a great atmosphere. The shed on the opposite side keeps the noise in. There's always a good vocal crowd in the main stand itself. But just to see every space crammed full of people yesterday was brilliant, and I'm sure it's one that the players will really have enjoyed.
And when we're looking back on the game, I suppose we're going to start at the end, and the bit of a row, or whatever you want to call it, that happened just before the game ended, really. 5 red cards, 4 for Tyrone, which I think everybody found strange, but it had no impact on the end result. Armagh were well ahead by that stage. We're clearly going to win the game. So like Tyrone getting 4 men put off, it didn't affect the game, but it was strange to see. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Like it had absolutely no relevance to the game. Armagh were winning it at that stage. There was no comeback for Tyrone. I ended up in the very, very top corner of the field, so I was the far end of it. Even from that distance, to me, it didn't look like there was any punches thrown at anything serious was happening. A lot of wrestling, a lot of pulling and dragging stuff. Too serious. So I was very surprised whenever I seen him dishing out 4 red cards for Tyrone, and then obviously just the one for ourselves. In relation to it, it's very disappointing, I suppose, that it's making such headlines. Like I was dropping bloody children in the school talking about on the radio and news talk, people who probably haven't even a clue what they were talking about. I don't even know whether they knew what the result was, but just after 8 o'clock this morning, they knew that there was 5 players sent off in what's classed as a brawl. Firstly, it wasn't a brawl. There wasn't a whole pile happening in it. If you're being really technical, I don't know, maybe getting boys in headlocks, throwing each other to the ground, and that maybe they are sending off offences. But for me, I think the ref, he could have booked one or two people and just got on with it. Like I said, how did you pick 4 or 5 out of it? I don't know, because you could have had 10 or 12 that could have got laned as well if that was the case. But it as a player, whenever you get caught up in the whole emotion of the thing and you think this is the right thing to do, and I've been involved in it myself, whether it was club or county, it wasn't as bad, but in 05 semi-final or Ulster final, sorry, it was similar, where there's pulling and dragging, and it's a lot of nonsense. And then whenever you look back at it as someone who was involved in it, you're like, Jesus, what we at? Like, just stay out of it. But in the heat of the moment, these things happen. There was nothing too serious. No one was going to get hurt. Does it look good? No. And have we give the rest of the country an opportunity to, suppose, bite back at us and take the shine off all the good that we did during the game? Probably have. But as far as I'm concerned, it's parked now. Don't have a huge pile of heat talking about it. If Tyrone need to go and do what they have to do to get 4 men off, let them at it. It's not our problem.
And I really don't want to spend too much on it, Aaron, because as we said, it's catching headlines. Everybody's talking about it, but in catching headlines, is that taken away from Armagh's performance? Armagh, they've defeated the last 2 All Ireland champions, beating Tyrone on Sunday. Is that taken away from the performance? Maybe Geezer will be happy enough with that's all people are talking about is the 5 red cards instead of how well Armagh played and how dominant.
Yeah, I'm sure Geezer won't be too disappointed that the Sunday game last night, as soon as it showed the game, the first thing it did was talk for 3 or 4 minutes about what happened. So for me, that does take away the gloss of it, because some of the football that Armagh played in the first half, the pace, the patience that they showed, the quality of score taken from all across the board was absolutely first class. Like, then the Tyrone are All Ireland champions. They had 12 of the team that started in the All Ireland final. And we completely dismantled them in the first half. Now, granted, we'll get on to the second half and improvements that Armagh can make, but for me, that was the story of the day, not what happened. But like I said, the disappointing thing is that whenever you do get involved in stuff like that, there, it does tend to be more of a headline grabber, even in the fact that you've just beat the All Ireland champions by 6 points. But like I said, if it does take the heat or whatever off Armagh, or how well they're performing around the rest of the country, as an Armagh supporter, and was delighted to see us getting the win. Yeah, you're just a bit disappointed that it has taken away from a bit. But like I said, what's done is done. We'll not talk a whole pile more about it in the lead up to the Monaghan game. It'll be full focus on them.
Yeah, and we'll move on to the action and the positive stuff that happened, and we'll talk about that. That first half for Armagh completely blew Tyrone away. The 2 goals from McCabe and Jason Duffy got the second. Shoulda and coulda had another 2 goals. Stephen Sheridan will probably be disappointed. With his attempt, he brought it in too close to Morgan, and then Morgan made another save from Kieran Mackin. But super first half performance, Aaron, and really it was Armagh who looked like the experienced All Ireland champions, and they were superb against Tyrone in that first half, and really were so dominant that it was surprising, really, for
yeah, like, I suppose the one thing that I really liked about Armagh was that there's a genuine confidence within the group at the moment, or that's what I'm feeling from looking at them playing. They're very assured in each other individually and how they want to play. But they're playing with a proper confidence, not a flaky one that as soon as a game goes against them, that they all go into their shells and mind their own patch. There is a genuine confidence there. And without oversight, like, I'm not saying there's a really nasty edge to Armagh, but they're definitely not going to be bullied by anybody. And they fronted up in every position all over the field again. And for me, that was a huge positive again, because Tyrone are All Ireland champions. Tyrone like to be physical, they can be chirpy, they can be all those things. But Armagh were the ones who were dictating the physical terms, the footballing terms, and they were being really clinical in anything that they were getting. And you said 2 goals had went in from Stephen Sheridan and Kieran Mackin. It wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been any different reflection of what was actually happening. I'd read one of the articles this morning online, I think it was Independent, and I was saying that it was like a county team against a club team. Now, it is only February, but that's what it looked like. And like I say, all we can comment on is what we're seeing as Armagh supporters. And for me, like it was so pleasing. How we used the ball, how we didn't panic, we kept with all the time. We had runners then getting ahead of the ball. If they didn't get it, they were wheeling around and getting back out again and creating space in front of goal. And that, I suppose, if you think of the Greg McCabe goal, like that's what happened. You know, there was a lot of where we had tried to make the break, didn't happen, but instead of getting bottled up by 3 or 4 Tyrone players, we were shipping the ball straight back out again before we got into too much conflict or contact. So we were never getting swarmed, and next thing the balls pop back out the rain. He has the vision to put a super ball in over the top. And then I suppose again, what wasn't commented on was Greg McCabe's composure to sidestep Niall Morgan and finish with his left foot. So like that was super. And again, it just shows how adaptable the Air Boys are once they find themselves in different situations.
And yeah, I suppose to branch off that a wee bit, I want to talk about our range of scorers. We got 11 different scorers yesterday. 10 of the starting team all scored. Everybody from midfield up scored. The 2 midfielders and the 6 forwards. Aaron McKay got a collector's item, and a point Aaron wouldn't get too many scores, but 11 different scores is serious going, Aaron. And like when you have a team that can score, anyone can score from anywhere. It's going to be seriously hard to defend against for everybody that we meet this year and for the rest of the campaign, I suppose, in Division 1.
Yeah, and then you said you had Charlie Oak scored, who was playing wing half. You also had Stephen Sheridan, who it looked like was playing around the half back line, who broke through for that goal chance as well in the first half. So, like, it's obviously something that they're working on, that they're scoring threats from all over the field. And it just means that you're keeping your opponents honest. So, you know, whether you're a corner forward or a wing half forward against Armagh now, you're going to have to do work heading in the opposite direction. So like there's so much that is being done right at the moment with the group, and I think that's obviously reflective of how they're playing and the results that they're getting. But I know Gazer's playing it down, and rightly so. He is playing it down. Where you're saying not to get people to get carried away. It's only early yet, but there's loads that they can work on, that we can improve on, small tweaks, and stuff that we're going to have to do, because to be honest with you, the more we keep winning, the more the teams who you're going to play in summer are sitting and watching every single game and seeing where other teams are getting joy against us, or seeing patterns of play that we have. So as the season goes on, we do need to keep evolving, keep working on what we're doing well, but still keep being able to evolve and better. Different scenarios where at the moment we're just maybe not the way we possibly could be.
And another thing, I suppose it's something similar as well, is the versatility of the team. We know already Aidan Falker, like he's now our best defender, but could well play full forward as well. Rian O'Neill's positioning just yesterday was, you know, he made the headlines last week for playing inside and scoring 1-4 and being a class full forward. But he come out and sort of pulled the strings, certainly in that first half, and we've seen that with Greg's goal. It was Rian played in that final ball. Charlie Oakes now moved to wing half back. We have a lot of players that can play anywhere on the field. And again, a bit like the scores, that's difficult for teams to plan against us when we do have that sort of range of versatility across the team. And I suppose
to be fair, the one with Rian, they knew he was never going to get the same time or space in front of goal. He was going to probably double or treble teamed all the time. So it worked well to take him out the field. It meant that, you know, he was just causing different problems or different headaches for them that maybe the Tyrone management or whoever was assigned to mark him wasn't expecting. But also, while he was coming out, it wasn't a plan for just let him to come out to do his own thing. As he was coming out, someone else was getting into the space that he was vacating, and that's where Greg McCabe's goal ultimately came from. And there were numerous occasions in the second half where there was different players who ended up in full forward. Aaron McKay ended up in it at one stage, Charlie Oak ended up in it. So it's a case of where the template of how they're being asked to play, it's not like years ago where defenders was one end of the field working on something forward to the other end. everybody needs to know what everyone else's roles is. So if you find yourself in a certain part of the field, you have to know what you have to do when you're there, whether it's tracking someone, whether it's been an outlet for a pass, or whether it's holding ball and waiting for, a shooter to come off your shoulder. So again, they're all huge positives for this team, that they're taking on board everything that they've been asked to do, and they're executing it really well.
We have spoke a bit about their defensive structure, and I feel we're going to talk about it a lot in the league and in the remaining games. Cian McKeever deserves massive credit, of course, but I just want to talk about that Tyrone full forward line of McCurry, Donnelly, and McShane, an all-star full forward line that got 1 point from play, and like huge compliments to Armagh's full back line on the defensive shell that put up that they would hold that, and all, as I say, an all-star full forward line to just 1 point from playing. We'll talk about McShane getting 7 frees in a bit, but serious credit deserved for that Armagh defensive display, Aaron.
It was, and I think that all stemmed from how they come out of the blocks early on and the aggression they played with, like Tyrone's first 3 attacks. Armagh seemed to be really clogging up the central channel, which is where obviously the most damage came against Monaghan last year in the championship. You don't see the runners coming through the centre of us anymore. Michael Langan did it in the league game last year. Obviously, Monaghan did it hugely in the first half of the championship. So that's something that obviously Cian McKeever has been sort of detailed to make sure that it has improved from last year, and it absolutely it's working at the moment. Like a lot of the turnovers that we were getting all were in that central channel, and then we were able to break at pace. But even if we didn't get a turnover, we were able to stop the Tyrone momentum, force them back, and then I seen a shot chart where basically the vast majority, I think they might have 2 opportunities in the number 13 corner forward position that they had kicked wide throughout the game, but the vast majority of them are 5-10 meters back from the edge of the D, which is just slightly out of the scoring zone. But also it sort of tells me from how Armagh was set up that it's slightly out of the scoring zone, but even at that, they were still under pressure. It wasn't free shots that they were getting at the target. And again, that there is a massive, massive positive from where we were at last year. Because again, there was so much that was being done right last year. We had retained the Division 1 status. Attacking wise, we were really good against Antrim and Monaghan. But obviously what happened in the first half against Monaghan wasn't good enough, and it was a key area of learning that obviously Armagh have taken on board. And obviously it's gone a long way to helping us get the 2 results that we have done so far.
I suppose that's all the positives out of the road. We'll maybe move on to some of the negatives, and we'll speak about that second half. But I suppose coming in at half time, you're 10 points up. Coming out for the second half, it's probably difficult to not take your foot off the gas, and till they did let Tyrone back into it in that second half, as you said earlier. You were afraid of Tyrone getting a goal, but I suppose it is difficult when you're in there at half time to sort of keep that momentum going and keep it the same intensity and the same level that you had in the first half when you're 10 points up, when you're so far ahead and you're so dominant. During that first half, it's probably difficult coming out again.
Mentally, that's where the issue really is there. And we've all been there before, where you're playing so well, you're full of energy, you nearly don't want half time to come. But with the best will in the world, managers come in and sit and say whatever they want. But as you're sitting in your own thoughts, you're thinking, Jesus, we're flying here. We're all over these boys. We're cutting them open. We should have 4 goals on the board. Someone says, but they're going to come out and throw everything at us, and that'll process for about a second, and then you'll go, but we're flying. We have control of this game. All we need to do is just see it out, be patient, pick off a few scores. But the issue then was whenever Tyrone really put the squeeze on us in terms of our kickouts, whenever they were scoring, they were getting a full press on us again. So we were struggling really hard to get out. And I think maybe a bit of eagerness nearly on our own behalf at that stage. Everyone was sucked back down into our defensive half of the field, bar Ryan most times. He was isolated and full forward by himself. But I think by us maybe trying to hunt and get on the ball and trying to carry it up the field, we just lost all our shape completely. If we had have even had one outlet, similarly to where Aidan Nugent found himself for Ryan's goal in Croke Park last week, where we had that option to foot pass out that's all we needed, was just one player who was going to hold the half forward lane. And we have those players. Like the ideal one is it's either Groogs or Aidan Nugent that plays that link role. But as the pressure was coming on, it just looked like we just kept dropping deeper and deeper in order to try and get on the ball or try and make sure that we were never getting exposed to give them a goal chance, which in fairness we didn't do. But I just felt that it put us under more pressure than we needed to be. If Tyrone were going full press on us, if we had that one outlet, all it would take is someone with a bit of vision to pop it over about 10, 12 Tyrone players, and we would have had a 2-on-2 in the opposite side of the field that I have no doubt we would have been able to work a few more simple scores and just give us a breather, just give the defence a breather for a couple of minutes, where we could then press up on their kick out and get us set and keep them in their own half for a couple of minutes so that, we weren't under constant pressure. But again, that's something that obviously management can sit down, have a look at, address, chat with the players, and just make sure that, the next time this happens us, that maybe we have a wee bit more structure to ourselves. And that's the great thing about the league, is that you find out so much about yourself. And mostly it happens whenever you lose. But I think the boys can be self-critical enough for themselves to realise, that there is still stuff that can be worked on. And for me, that's definitely one key area.
We talked about McShane earlier, he got 7 points in that second half, all from frees. I suppose the scoreable frees that Armagh were giving up, they didn't concede any goal chances, I suppose was the big thing for them in the second half. And instead of conceding them goal chances, maybe they were taking the foul or giving away the free.
It doesn't bother me if they're not getting clean through and goal. I thought, to be honest, I thought some of them looked, again, I was opposite end of the field, but I thought some of them just looked soft. I didn't think there was a whole pile in them. A few of them, I think everybody knew exactly what they were doing, and they were right to do it, because if the shoe was another foot, I know exactly what would happen. But yeah, 7-8 frees to me is, because you're coming up against the top teams later in the year. In summer, whenever the ground's a wee bit drier and harder, they're going to be racking up bigger scores from play, so we can't afford to be giving them 6 to 8 scoreable frees, because we're going to be punished all day long. So again, it's another area that I was just listening to Geezer coming home on the radio, where he was saying, maybe it was a bit of focus from our guys, that they had switched off a bit, put ourselves in wrong positions where we left ourselves scrambling. But again, it's not stuff that can't not be fixed. I'd say between Geezer and Kieran McKeever, that they'll be able to sit down, go through each individual case, chat to the players and hand, show to them full squad. And yeah, it's great that it's something that there is work to be done in that regard. And ultimately it has to be done. You can't concede that many. And there were simple scores too, that McShane was always going to kick.
And just on that second half, Aaron, were you disappointed Armagh didn't come out and, maybe beat Tyrone by more, push on and really make a big statement? They did let Tyrone back into the game, took their foot off the pedal really. And we spoke about it's difficult, I know, coming out in that second half when you're so far ahead. But did that disappoint you, that they didn't really push on and, maybe beat Tyrone by more?
Yeah, it sort of was, because to be honest with you, I know the 6 points in the end, but it got to the stage where we were that camped in our own half. You were thinking, Jesus, if Tyrone ended up getting a goal here, we're going to be completely in the game whenever it's not necessary. So yeah, I felt we left them in a game that they had no right to be in, given how dominant we were in the first half. But I suppose another one was, I sort of had hope that the Monaghan McKenna Cup game, granted it was only McKenna Cup, and in terms of personnel from both teams, there was quite a lot of changes compared to what we had yesterday. But it was the same thing. Like we were so dominant against Monaghan in the McKenna Cup game that you couldn't see anywhere where they could possibly get back into it. But we did. We let them back into it in the second half, made a bit of a game of it. And we ended up obviously ultimately losing that one on penalty. So I would have thought that it might have been something that was fresh in the minds of our boys, that they would try and come out early, get a few scores on the board. Granted, Tyrone's going to throw everything at you, and as all Ireland champions going in, they were literally being humiliated. So you have to expect that they're going to come at us, and we don't want to leave ourselves exposed. But like I said, I definitely felt there were opportunities where we had Rain literally standing 1-on-1 on the 14, and he had nobody until the far 65. So without that link player, it was a running game. And with Tyrone's aggression levels up, hunting in packs all the time, it just meant that the ball was going to be tougher to come up the field. So it was giving ourselves an outlet ahead of the ball is all we needed to get ourselves the opportunity to get a simple pass out of the defense to work a simple score. So it is, it's definitely one area that we do need to work on and address, because teams are so good now putting full squeezes on you that we just can't let another team to get that run and that momentum on us again.
And speaking to the journalists after the game, Geezer said, don't be getting carried away. Your message to the fans, don't be getting carried away. It's early, it's February. I find it hard not to get carried away on or get too excited. I suppose having beaten the last two All-Ireland champions, Dublin and Tyrone, it's hard for fans not to get excited or get carried away. Yes, it's February, but I know myself that they're showing signs that they're really making the top, they're making the breakthrough. And as I say, beating the last two All-Ireland champions in Dublin and Tyrone.
Alranian. No, well, why wouldn't you be proud of how they're playing? Like I said, they're up in Division 1. 2 results. Like I said, the past 2 All-Ireland champions. It's so long since we've been competing at this level, let alone beating those teams. So there's every right to go out and enjoy this and get behind them, and like you can see the support growing all the time. And ultimately, that's what our job is as supporters. Or you get invested in these things, and you want to see your team do well. You want to be proud of it, and you want to talk about them. So from our perspective, that's great, and we can do all the talking we want, and we can think forward and down the lane all we want. But from a player's perspective, I have no doubt that while they'll be enjoying this, and hopefully they maybe went out yesterday evening and they've had a few drinks and they've looked back and I suppose been happy with what they've done the first 2 weeks, but they'll just get back in, start looking at what's going right, bettering it, what's going wrong, and improving on it. But yeah, from our perspective, do I think I'm a booking hotels or anything for Croke Park yet? Not yet. I just think that's too far down the lane. But I'm enjoying seeing the consistency levels and the confidence building within the team, because I suppose just for too long we've been sitting talking about what's happened whenever we won in 2002 or the amount of Ulster titles that we won then. So to see the boys now back in Division 1, retaining the status last year, going well already, why can't we be happy about it? Why can't we enjoy it? There's been enough lean days, there's been enough disappointments, relegations going up and down through divisions. So absolutely, we have to come out and enjoy what's happening at the moment and try and create the buzz and the atmosphere and I suppose the interest within the county and just let it grow.
And now, obviously, we have a 2 week break coming up until they play Monaghan. It's 2 weeks. It's going to be a Saturday evening game. What's your thoughts on a 2 week break? Probably good in the fact that we have Oisin O'Neill, James Morgan, Ross McQuillan, Ben Creeley all to come back in. They'll get a bit of a chance to get back in and fight for a spot in that Monaghan game. But is it a momentum killer? Does it kill the momentum we've built up from the first 2 rounds on beating Dublin and Tyrone? Or maybe it's a good thing Geezer will be happy enough with 2 weeks to get them boys back in and get working on everything we've talked about here today.
In general, I don't like a break, but 2 weeks doesn't bother me. I think all those boys who've played those 2 games, they'll not mind this week where you can sort of wind down a bit. There'll be a lot of knocks, there'll be a lot of sore bodies. And I think it'll give the team this week a chance to refresh the bodies, the minds, recap on everything that's happened over this past few weeks. And from a manager's perspective, I think they'll be delighted because you can potentially go ahead and have a full 15 on 15 again next week, and where you're nearly starting from scratch and saying, right, who wants to be in for the Monaghan game here in 6 days' time? And then we can start to build it up again. So for me, no, I think if it's 3-4 week break, yeah, hate them that's where I always felt you lost momentum, and that was usually around championship time. But in relation to the league, we've had boys who's been in and out trying to play college football as well. So it gives everyone a chance to refresh, regroup, and I have no doubt about it that we'll be fully primed for Monaghan coming to town in 2 weeks' time, and hopefully we'll have another massive support out from within the county and a great Saturday night in Armagh.
Yeah, it's definitely one to look forward to. So that's all we have today. As I said, coming up next is our competition winners. We're going to announce who the winners are. We'll also speak to Dean Gaffney, who scored 10 points at the weekend as Armagh defeated Louth in the hurling. Aaron, great having you on once again, and thanks very much for giving us all your thoughts on Armagh's 6-point win over All-Ireland champions Tyrone.
No problem, Sean.
So we're going to have the winners of our black jersey competitions now, and the first of 3 winners of the black jersey is Stephen McKierney. And congratulations, Stephen. You're the proud owner now of a McKeever black jersey that were shown by the Armagh hurlers and footballers and their wins over the weekend. So we have 3 to give away. Stephen has won the first one, and now we'll see the second one goes to Laura McLeod. And just before we announce the last one, thanks to everybody that entered the competition. There was over 1,000 people entered the competition. Thanks to everybody that liked, shared, followed the page, and make sure to keep on top with all the content that we share over the next few weeks. And the last one is Shay Hughes. So congratulations, everybody. Make sure to contact the page and arrange details to collect the jersey. And I will hear from Dean Gaffney, who was part of the Armagh hurling team that beat Louth at the weekend. Dean, good performance against Louth today, and good to get an opening day win.
Yeah, very good, Sean. Conditions were hard, and Louth brought it to us in the first half. And with the wind and stuff, now we had to dig deep to get it. We eventually got over by a point at the end.
And how tough was the conditions out there? Slippy underfoot, and as you say, the wind as well?
It was, yeah, plenty of rough balls, man, falling all over the place, but that's when work rate and all comes down to it. And fair play to us, the substitutions and stuff fairly helped. Owen McGuinness there showed well. I think he got 2 goals at the end of 2-1 maybe.
And Louth obviously knew this was going to be a big challenge, and they really give you a tough test today.
Yeah, we always expect to take one again Louth, and we came down here and threw everything at us. And yeah, like we were under no illusions today. After I know we'd have done well again in the McGirt Cup, but we weren't expecting the same team today.
And that first half performance, they really put it up. Do you think they were 4 ahead at half time?
Yeah, and even I think it was 1 minute into the second half, they were up by 7. So Jesus threw everything at us. It was fair play to our boys today, and again, I won fantastic. So hard to beat having a panel like that with men coming off the line to get us over. And
you have a serious panel this year, and even before you could see during the warm up, like the serious numbers there.
We do, yeah. Like when we're having full matches and training and stuff, which is great. You know, it adds competition. Many men fighting for places, like you could throw a number of men that could be 3 on there ahead of anyone any day.
And you mentioned Owen McGuinness coming in and getting 2 goals. Like having that sort of strength coming off the bench is always going to be good.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And we always knew, there was a very strong win today, and we knew in the second half if we gather ourselves and get together that we could turn it around.
Good morning, Dean. Thanks for coming on.
No problem, Sean. Thank you.